Let's be very clear. Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that. And it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which would, of course, pose an existential threat, not just to Israel, but to the United States and to the entire world.
So how did, and how maybe in the future, Iran get so close to a nuclear bomb? Here to discuss it is U.S. former Special Assistant Representative for Iran, Brian Hook. And Brian, if you could just take a look at your monitor, here's a look at what they're saying. If you get a one weapon in 2 or 3 days, you could quickly go to 11, and then in 2 months, 15, 19, 21, 22. But it really all changes with the one, because they have the scientists, they had the material, and then it would be like North Korea. We just would accept it. That's what they were hoping for, and that's pretty significant, don't you think?
Very much so. And Iran now has enough enriched nuclear material for 10 nuclear bombs.
Right now.
And yeah, right now, yes. They have increased the processing and they've been spinning their 16,000 advanced centrifuges in an escalatory fashion because they are trying to become a nuclear state. And, you know, this is like, it's much harder to negotiate against a country when they have a nuclear weapon, as we've learned with North Korea. And if Iran were able to acquire a weapon, the Middle East will never be the same.
So there's fissile material located somewhere outside these nuclear plants, I understand, and possibly even Israel doesn't know where it is. Where would you put nuclear material, enriched uranium?
Iran, over the course of its nuclear history, has dispersed its research and enrichment all across the country. And this has created a real challenge for Israel, and it's doing a terrific job of taking out these sites. But, I mean, over the course of, I've been working on this file for a long time, going back to like 2006, when the UN nuclear agency back then said that Iran was not in compliance with its nuclear obligations. And they have been playing this game with the United Nations and with the United States and Israel for decades. And it's now, I think the time, it's now come to an end.
So I want people to know also, as we take a look back at the wall again, why this is our fight too. And we know, banging back to the 80s, they've been killing Americans through their proxy. They thought to be the gold standard Hezbollah. Remember, the hostages with Ted Koppel, and every single night, at the launch of Nightline, America was traumatized. Jimmy Carter would lose the presidency, a failed attempt to rescue them. We were embarrassed. And then a couple of years later, in Beirut, Hezbollah is taking control of that country. The bombing that killed 17 Americans. And then the ones ultimately under Reagan that killed 241. Up into Israel, killed the culprits that were still alive a few months ago. They've been living great lives, living off the backs of that success. And then, Brian, I want to bring you in here. People think, well, we had a problem with Iraq. We don't replicate Iraq. A lot of the problem with Iraq was the insurgency sponsored and trained, financed, and directly supported by the Iranians. What did they do? They say estimated 603 Americans dead thanks to them, blood on their hands.
Yes, that is the work of General Qasem Soleimani, whom President Trump took off the battlefield in the first term. He organized, trained, and equipped all of these proxies in Iraq that are directly responsible for killing 603 American soldiers, as you said, Brian. And then on top of that, we're talking about thousands who were seriously and gravely injured. And so this is a regime that has been at war with the United States for over 40 years and have killed well over 1,000 Americans through its proxies.
Brian, I know you have great respect for the President of the United States, and he has for you. But what would you like to see him do from the intelligence that you have right now?
Well, the president's doing an excellent job of kind of letting events come his way. And my experience with him is that he very much wants to avoid conflict and get to a point where you can have a deal with the Iranian regime that addresses its nuclear program. And he has made clear dozens of times that Iran cannot enrich. that the enrichment has to end, and you don't need to enrich in order to have a peaceful nuclear program. But right now, Iran is enriching at the levels of almost 90%. You only need 2 to 3% for peaceful nuclear power. So the Iranian regime is lying, and they should come back to the negotiating table and accept the offer that the president has made to resolve this peacefully.
Unfortunately, I don't think we have a trustworthy partner and may be postponing an inevitable clash by not taking this opportunity. I know there's downsides to it and risk, but I don't think it's an historic window. Brian, we'll look forward to talking to you throughout the crisis.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.